The observation deck at Rainier Memorial Hospital looked down on OR3 like a glass balcony over a stage. Fluorescent light washed everything in a flat blue. Stainless steel gleamed. Below, a team moved around a draped body, checking lines, adjusting monitors, voices low and focused. Dr. Riley Hart stood at the back right hand, resting on the handle of her black carbon cane badge, still stiff against her chest. The name on it, reflected faintly in the glass, looked almost like it belonged to someone else. Riley Hart, MD, surgical intern. It was 6:45 for a 7 o'clock orientation. Of course, she had arrived early. Her left leg ached in that deep, familiar way that felt carved into the bone, a slow burn that had started around 4 in the morning and never quite left. She shifted more weight onto her right side and let her eyes track the rhythm of the OR below the steady beep of the monitor, the soft hum of the anesthesia machine, the clean clink of metal as the scrub nurse laid instruments in precise rows. The board on the wall read, OR3, laparoscopic appendectomy, Nolan Henry, 7:30, ding. 10:30, routine. Riley thought, watching the neat letters. That word always made her careful. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss of air. You are the new intern. The voice had the calm weight of someone used to being heard. Riley turned. Dr. Alan Mercer stepped into the room. His white coat sat perfectly over a dark shirt and tie, silver hair combed back without a strand out of place. His shoes were polished enough that the overhead light caught on the leather. Up close, he smelled faintly of soap and coffee. Yes, sir? Riley said. Dr. Hart, Riley Hart. Mercer's gaze dropped at once to her cane traveled up the slim carbon shaft, paused at her hand, and finally reached her face with a detached clinical interest. You are early, so, he said. I like to see the room before I work in it, she answered. This is observation. You will not be working for a while. She offered her hand. It is good to meet you, Dr. Mercer. He looked at her hand but did not take it. Instead, he walked past her to the glass and clasped his own hands behind his back. I read your file, he said. Her hand stayed in the air for 1 second too long, then she let it fall to her side. State school, community college first. No research, no publications, no fellowships. He recited the details as if reading a lab report. No heat in the tone, just judgment packed into the choice of what to mention. Yes, sir, Riley replied. The program here is demanding. His eye slid back to the cane. We do not lower the bar, and we do not compromise patient safety for accommodations. I am fully cleared for surgical duty, she said. Occupational health signed off. Occupational health did not train at Hopkins, he said. A corner of her mouth twitched. No, sir. Mercer turned from the glass. His gaze lingered on the way she balanced careful with her left leg even while standing still. Can you stand through a 6-hour case, Dr. Hart? I'm not asking for a theoretical answer. She held his stare. The ache climbed behind her kneecap, but she kept her voice steady. Yes, she said. I can. He searched her face as if looking for the lie. Whatever he wanted to see, he did not find. For the first month, Mercer said, you observe. No hands-on. You join rounds. If you can keep up without slowing the team, we will revisit. Her grip on the cane tightened until the knuckles turned pale. Yes, sir. He checked his watch, then the OR again. We run a very tight program here, he said. Do not confuse that with unkindness. Then he left, door hissing shut behind him. Riley stayed where she was. Below, the scrub nurse counted sponges. The anesthesiologist adjusted a drip. Someone laughed at something that did not make it through the glass. Her leg throbbed in time with the monitor, but pain belonged in a separate compartment in her mind, a box with a tight lid. She had learned to put it there and leave it. Name the ache, set it aside, keep moving. The door opened again. This time the room felt different even before she turned. A woman stepped in a dark hair twisted into a quick bun under a blue surgical cap mask hanging loose around her neck. She spotted Riley, paused for half a heartbeat, then smiled with an easy warmth that cut through the sterile light. You must be the new intern, she said. Riley, right? That is me, Riley answered. The woman crossed the room and held out her hand without glancing at the cane. I am Maya Ortiz, second year. They send me to collect strays. Riley shook her hand. Maya's grip was firm and warm, confident, without being performative. Dr. Mercer already gave you the welcome speech. Yeah? Maya asked. In his own style, Riley said. Maya snorted quietly. Do not worry. He likes almost no one. If you did not train at Harvard or Hopkins, he assumes you learned anatomy from YouTube. Good to know I am not special, Riley said. Oh, you are special, Maya answered. Just not in the way he means. She leaned on the rail beside Riley and looked down at OR3. The team below was draping the patient bright blue cloths swallowed by the white light. You are on observation for a month, Maya asked. So he told me. Honestly, that is not terrible. My first month, I mostly stood in one place for hours, holding retractors and praying I would not faint into the field. Her tone stayed light, but Riley still caught the quick, automatic slide of Maya's eyes toward the cane. Curious alert, not pitying. Injury? Maya asked. The word came out soft, an open door, rather than a demand. Old one, Riley said. It does not affect my work. Then it is none of my business, Maya said simply. Some of the tightness between Riley's shoulder blades eased. You coming to the lounge after orientation? Maya went on. Coffee tastes like burned plastic, but it is free, and sometimes Dr. White brings bagels when she feels generous. She's one of the good ones. I will stop by. Oh, Riley said. Good. You are with my team on rounds. Try not to make me look slow. By 7:30, the surgical ward had shaken fully awake. Carts squeaked over scuffed vinyl phones, rang, monitors chirped behind closed doors. The cluster of residents formed around Mercer near the nurses' station and began moving as one blocked down the corridor. 12 white coats, 4 attendings, a handful of medical students trailing along the edges like stray satellites. Riley walked at the back beside Maya. The rubber tip of her cane tapped a steady beat on the floor, a muted click that fell into rhythm with the soft slap of shoes and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Her left leg protested by the third room, but protest was not a new language. She let the pain run in the background while she listened, watched, absorbed. First patient, a post-operative colectomy. Mercer fired questions and exhausted third year answered. A student fumbled and turned red. Second patient, small bowel obstruction. NG tube electrolyte imbalances. Mercer's voice cut neatly through any hesitation, never quite harsh, but never gentle. Halfway through the hall, Dr. Logan Price peeled off from a side corridor and joined the front of the group. He moved with the easy confidence of someone used to admiration. Dark blonde hair fell just right over his forehead, jawline, clean eyes a shade too amused. His stethoscope looked expensive. His watch definitely was. He fell into place a step behind Mercer, glancing back over the group with a quick scan. His gaze landed on Riley and the cane, then slid back to the attending he wanted to impress. A few minutes later, during a quiet stretch between rooms, he raised his voice just enough. Watch your step back there, Price said. Would not want anyone tripping over support equipment. The joke hung in the air. A few residents gave short, uncertain laughs. One of the medical students stared at the floor. Riley kept her eyes on her tablet, her face calm. Her hand tightened around the cane's handle, the polished grip warm under her palm. Ignore him, Maya muttered without moving her lips. His ego takes up most of his brain. Already done? Riley said. It was not, but the memory tucked itself neatly into the same mental file where she kept other small details. Who made jokes, who laughed, who looked away. Patterns. The last room on the floor belonged to Henry Nolan. Mid-50s, pale sweat beading along his hairline. His chart hung at the foot of the bed. His right hand covered his upper abdomen. His left rested near his shoulder thumb, digging absently into the muscle there. Mr. Nolan, Mercer said, stepping in. How is the pain? Still there, Mr. Nolan answered. His voice was hoarse from a long night. Sharp, then dull. Keeps moving. Mercer skimmed the chart while he spoke. 58-year-old male. Fever, right upper quadrant, pain, nausea, vomiting. Ultrasound shows gallstones and thickened gallbladder wall. Labs consistent with cholecystitis. Dr. Price, this will be your case this afternoon. Price nodded, already thinking ahead to the OR. Behind them, Riley studied the patient. She saw the way Nolan's shoulders hunched, the way he guarded his side. She watched his face tighten when he shifted the tiny pull of breath when his left shoulder moved. Her gaze dropped, catching a glimpse of mottled skin under the gown's gap. A pale, thick scar ran along his left flank, curved like something blunt had broken him once, and someone had raced to put him back together. She stepped forward a little. "Dr. Mercer," Riley said. The group quieted. He looked up from the chart. "Yes, Dr. Hart." "May I see the chart for a moment?" For a second, he simply stared as if weighing whether allowing her to hold his file was worth the time. Then he handed it over. Riley flipped through the pages quickly. Imaging reports, labs, notes from the ER. Everything pointed to gallbladder disease. Nothing mentioned the old trauma. "You see something interesting, intern," Price said, the edges of his voice, light but edged. Riley kept her eyes on the page. "Mr. Nolan is guarding his left shoulder," she said. "He has a scar on his left flank consistent with old blunt trauma. The shoulder pain could be referred." "This is a gallbladder case," Mercer replied. "The gallbladder is in the right upper quadrant, not the shoulder." Riley lifted her gaze. "Care sign can present as left shoulder pain with splenic injury," she said quietly. "If he had an encapsulated splenic hematoma from an older injury, the ultrasound might not pick it up." Price shifted his weight in patience in the tilt of his body. One of the students looked interested, then shut it down fast when Mercer's eyes swept the group. "The ultrasound was read as clear, Surfit," Mercer said. "There is no documented splenic pathology and no current indication for further imaging. We do not order tests because an intern feels a pattern." Silence stretched. The air felt thicker, crowded with the unspoken things people wanted to say and would not. Riley held his gaze. There was no challenge there, just certainty that did not match the months listed under her name. "Understood, sir," she said. He took the chart back. "For now," he said, "focus on learning to recognize what is in front of you, not what you imagine might be there." He stepped into the hall. The group flowed after him like water around a rock. Maya gave Riley the smallest shrug and an apologetic look before she followed. Later, as they moved past Nolan's room again on their way to another wing, Riley let her eyes flick toward the narrow panel of glass in the door. Nolan lay in almost the same position, hands still hovering near his left shoulder, jaw clenched as he tried to breathe through the discomfort. For a moment, her own body echoed the tension, a ghost of remembered pain creeping up her thigh and into her hip. She exhaled slowly and dragged her attention back to the path in front of her. One foot, then the other, cane tapping in time. The day stretched long. Orientation bled into rounds, into checklists and lectures, into a blur of new passwords and door codes. By 8 in the evening, the resident lounge sat mostly empty. The overhead lights were dimmed. The television in the corner played some crime show with the sound off an endless loop of flashing police lights and actors in suits. The room smelled like old carpet and burned coffee. Riley sat in the far corner, her left leg stretched out on a spare chair, an ice pack wrapped under her scrub pants at the knee. Her cane leaned against the armrest within easy reach. She scrolled through charts on her tablet lips, moving just enough to track lab values and post-op orders. The low hum of the vending machine and the distant beep of a monitor formed a background she did not need to think about. Her phone buzzed beside her elbow. She did not grab it right away. 2 more short vibrations, then silence. Finally, she set the tablet down and picked up the phone. The screen showed an unknown number. She hesitated, thumb hovering, then opened the message. "You picked a busy place to disappear, Wraith. No greeting, no signature. Just that one word that did not belong in this building." Her throat tightened for a heartbeat. The lounge seemed to shrink walls, drawing closer, the hum in her ears sharpening. "Wraith?" For a moment, she could almost hear another sound over the vending machine, a memory of radio static and distant blasts. Her thumb moved. Delete message, clear thread. She backed out, held the power button until the screen went black. Her faint reflection stared back at her eyes, darker than the room hair flattened by a long day under a cap. She set the phone face down on the table, picked up the tablet again. Her leg pulsed with a deep, slow ache. She nudged the pain back into its box and sealed the lid. Outside the lounge door, a monitor alarm chirped once and then cut off. Somewhere in the hospital, a nurse adjusted a drip, a porter pushed a bed, a patient called out. The building kept breathing. Riley Hart sat in the dim light, the word wraith folding itself into the deepest part of her mind, and told herself that was where it would stay. Rainier looked different at 6 a.m. The hall lights were softer, the voices quieter, the polished floors still smudged from the night shift. Riley moved through the corridors with her cane ticking lightly on the vinyl, a tired nurse pushing a linen cart swerving around her with a nod. She checked the board before rounds. Nolan was still scheduled for a laparoscopic cholecystectomy at 2 p.m. Status stable. She stared at the word for a moment, then shut the tablet and went to find coffee instead of arguing with a screen. Rounds started on time. Mercer at the front, Price a step behind a train of residents and students trailing along the surgical ward. They hit 3 rooms on the 2nd floor, 2 on the 3rd. Vitals Lab's quick teaching points. Riley listened, answered when asked, kept pace. Her leg protested, but it always did. When they reached Nolan's room again, the group slowed. Mercer paused at the doorway and glanced at the monitor. Heart rate a little high, pressure a little soft. Nolan's skin had taken on a faint yellow tint that had not been there yesterday. "How is the pain today, Mr. Nolan?" Mercer asked. "Still bad?" Nolan said. He sounded more worn down, like someone who had not truly slept. "It shoots up here sometimes." He moved his right hand toward his left shoulder and grimaced. Riley stood farther back this time. She did not say anything. She watched the way he held himself, the way he guarded that exact spot, the shallow rise and fall of his chest. Her fingers tightened on the cane. Mercer flipped through the chart, then closed it with a light snap. "We will take care of you this afternoon," he said. "You are in good hands." Riley looked at his hands, long fingers, neat nails, then down at her own. Calloused where a cane handle pressed where a scalpel had once rested for hours at a time. Price gave a reassuring smile that did not quite reach his eyes. "It is a simple operation," he said. "You will sleep through it." They moved on. The parade of white coats left Nolan staring at the ceiling. The morning slid by in small tasks. Consent forms mid reconciliations chasing lab results that had been ordered but not drawn. Riley learned the particular way Rainier's electronic records lagged when you needed them most and refused to load a simple CBC without 3 clicks and a curse. Close to noon, she escaped to the observation deck again. OR 3 was already set up for Nolan's case. Blue drapes, ports, ready instruments laid out like a metal city. A nurse adjusted the overhead lights, the edges of the beam tightening over the empty table. Riley leaned on the rail, resting some of her weight through her arms, giving her leg a break. From this height, the OR looked almost calm. The overhead speaker crackled. "Code blue, OR 3, code blue, OR 3. The words echoed in the glass room. Riley straightened. The door slammed open behind her, and 2 more residents rushed in, pressing to the front of the glass. Below, chaos had replaced order. Nolan was on the table, already intubated. Monitors screamed red numbers free-falling. Nurses moved fast, hanging bags, squeezing fluids into lines. The anesthesiologist called out pressures that did not sound like they belonged to a living person. Mercer burst through the OR door, already half in his gown, someone tying it closed as he walked. Price stood at the foot of the table, hands in the air, waiting to be gloved, eyes wide in a way he tried to hide. "Talk to me," Mercer said, voice sharp. "Pressure crashed during induction," the anesthesiologist answered. 60/30 and dropping. Heart rate 140. He is not responding to fluids. Mercer's hands were already moving. Scrub nurse passed him a scalpel. The planned, neat laparoscopic ports vanished as he opened the abdomen with one long decisive cut. Blood welled up, not a fountain, not a tiny ooze, just a steady dark sheen that spread where it should not be. "Gallbladder is inflamed," Mercer said. "No obvious perforation. Retract." Price pulled tissue aside, suction working, trying to keep up. "Liver looks clean," Price said. "No active bleeding here." "Check the bowel, check the stomach," Mercer snapped. From above, the pattern unfolded in ways the cameras did not quite capture. Riley's eyes followed the flow of blood across the open cavity. It pooled in the left upper quadrant, dark and insistent. The gallbladder sat swollen but intact. The bile was not where the redness gathered. Her heart beat faster, but not from fear. A different kind of urgency took over the old one that cared more about pressure readings than about orders. "It is the spleen," she said quietly. "What?" the resident beside her asked. "They are looking on the wrong side," Riley said. "It is the spleen." The monitor numbers below dropped again. 40/20, the anesthesiologist called. We are losing him. Mercer scanned the cavity again more quickly this time, but his hands were already committed to the wrong territory. Riley stepped back from the glass. In one motion, she grabbed her cane, turned, and left the observation deck. Her leg protested the speed, but she ignored it. The hall blurred past. She pushed through the scrub room door with the side of her shoulder. You cannot go in there. You are not scrubbed, a nurse said, startled. Riley did not go in. She went straight to the intercom panel and hit the button that fed audio into the OR. Dr. Mercer, she said, voice level, check his spleen. Below, everyone froze for a fraction of a second. Mercer's head snapped up, eyes searching for the source of the voice. He found the camera and threw it the vague shape of someone in the observation area. Dr. Hart, he said. Even through the speaker, his irritation was clear. You are not authorized to direct this case. He has a previous left upper quadrant injury, Riley said. He has an old scar on his flank and referred pain to his left shoulder. This morning he was guarding that shoulder. The ultrasound can miss an encapsulated splenic hematoma. Induction dropped his pressure enough to blow the capsule. Silence filled the scrub room. The nurse beside Riley stopped breathing for a second. Below the monitor issued another shrill alarm. 30/15, the anesthesiologist said. He is circling the drain. Mercer stared upward for 3 hard seconds. Then he looked back down at the field. Retract the stomach, he said to Price. I want exposure on the left. Suction, now. Price shifted position hands, moving fast, pulling tissue aside under Mercer's guidance. Mercer reached toward the left upper quadrant, fingers probing, then pausing at a spot just under the diaphragm. Here, he said. He pressed. Blood welled up thicker and darker. It did not stop. Capsular tear in the spleen, active hemorrhage. Price swore under his breath. Clamps, Mercer said. We are taking the spleen. The scrub nurse slapped instruments into his hands as fast as he asked for them. He moved with the speed of someone who had done this often, but there was tension in his shoulders that had not been there before. Riley kept her hand on the intercom button but said nothing more. She watched every motion, every suture. The nurse beside her exhaled slowly. Bit by bit, the numbers on the monitor climbed. 40/20, 50/30, 60/35. The red began to recede from the field, replaced by the dull sheen of moist tissue and the pale glint of clamps. After what felt like a much longer set of minutes than the clock said, the anesthesiologist spoke again. Pressure holding at 80/40, heart rate coming down, he is stabilizing. Mercer stood still for 1 second, then stepped back from the table. His gloves were red to the wrists. His breathing sounded controlled, deliberate. Finish the closure, he told Price. I will complete the documentation. He stripped off his gown and gloves as he walked toward the scrub room. Riley stepped away from the intercom and found a place against the tiled wall where she could stand without looking like she was propping herself up. Her leg trembled under her muscle fatigue, catching up now that she had stopped moving. The door swung open. Mercer entered, mask pulled down, lines of tension still etched around his mouth. He stopped when he saw her. How did you know? He asked. Riley straightened. The steam from the sinks rose between them. The scar on his flank, Chouin. She said. The way he was guarding his left shoulder. The pattern of the blood just now. It was pooling in the left upper quadrant. His gallbladder looked inflamed, but it was not the source. That is not an intern-level call, Mercer said. That is not even a senior resident call. She held his eyes. It was enough to ask the question, she said. He turned to the sink, let the water run over his hands, as if he still needed to scrub even though the gloves were already off. His voice came out quieter. You saved his life, he said. You saved his life, Riley answered. I just pointed at the right corner. Do not be modest, Dr. Hart, he said. It is unhelpful. He shut off the water with an elbow reached for a towel. Pattern recognition like that does not appear in 6 weeks. He turned back toward her. Where did you train before you came here? Riley felt her throat tighten around an answer she could not afford to give. Rainier is my first surgical residency, she said. You saw that in my file. His eyes searched her face looking for the missing pieces. Before he could press, the overhead speaker crackled again. Trauma team to emergency department. Incoming motor vehicle collision. Mercer hesitated, torn between 2 pulls, then chose the one that was bleeding. We will revisit this, he said, later. He left. The door hissed shut behind him again. That night, the skills lab was empty except for the soft hum of the overhead lights and the faint antiseptic smell clinging to the air. Riley stood at one of the practice stations, a foam pad stretched over a plastic frame in front of her. She held a needle driver in her right hand, a pair of forceps in her left. The fake skin had been cut open in a straight line. She was closing it with a series of interrupted mattress sutures, each one placed fast and tight, the edges of the foam kissing each other cleanly as she tied. In-out cross tie. Her hands moved with a muscle memory that did not match the number of civilian months on her CV. You know that is not how they show it in the videos, right? The voice pulled her out of the rhythm. She looked up. Dr. Arjun Mehta leaned in the doorway, a coffee cup in one hand, his own ID badge turned backward on his chest. His hair was mussed, his expression curious. In which videos? Riley asked. Simulation videos, he said, walking in. The ones they make us watch during boot camp orientation. They teach a nice, lazy, simple interrupted. He stopped at her station and watched her finish another stitch. That, he said, nodding at her work, is a combat-style vertical mattress. My brother showed me something like that once. He is Army. It is just efficient, Riley said. Good edge aversion. Also good when you do not know how long the patient will actually keep the wound clean, Arjun said. Like, say, in a tent that keeps getting shot at. She set the needle driver down, feeling his gaze, trying to peel back layers. I like the technique, she said. It holds. He lifted his hands in surrender. I'm not accusing you of anything, he said. Just noticing. You are good with your hands. That is the job, she answered. Not as 6 weeks in, he said. We'll be like days. He said quietly. The lab door opened again. Maya stuck her head in. There you are, she said. Price is holding court in the lounge and using your name a lot. Thought you might want to see the show. Riley exhaled once and stepped away from the pad. Stitches will still be here, Arjun said, half joking. So will Price, Maya said, unfortunately. The resident lounge hummed with low conversation by the time they got there. Someone had found a half-decent playlist and turned it down low. Takeout containers crowded one table. Price stood near the coffee machine with a soda in his hand, 2 interns and a med student orbiting him like satellites. I am just saying, he said loud enough for the room. It was a good guess. He saw Riley in the doorway and let his mouth curl into something like a smile. Our very own Oracle, he said, calling spleens from the balcony. Maya's shoulders stiffened beside her. It was not a guess, Riley said. Her voice stayed mild. It was anatomy. Sure, Price said. He took a sip of soda. And I'm not saying it was not useful. It was. You got lucky, and a man kept his blood inside his body. We all appreciate that. He tilted his cup in a mock toast. It usually takes years of training to see that kind of pattern, he went on. So either you are a genius, or you have been secretly moonlighting at another residency. Arjun spoke from the couch. Or she is just paying attention, he said. Relax, Price. Yes, Price said. I am complimenting her. Maya stepped in. That is a strange way of saying thank you, she said. Price's eyes cooled at the edges just for a moment, then he shrugged. We are all on the same team, Shakhi said. I'm sure Dr. Hart will have plenty of chances to show off her pattern skills. Riley picked up her tablet from the corner table where she had left it and sat ignoring the small nod of attention. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between beats of conversation. Someone changed the channel on the mute television. For a while, they all pretended to be just co-workers winding down. The pager on Riley's waistband shrieked without warning, joined a heartbeat later by half a dozen others. The lounge snapped to attention. Mass casualty alert, the overhead speaker announced. Crane collapse at downtown construction site. All available surgical staff to emergency department. Takeout containers and cups were abandoned where they sat. The room emptied in under 10 seconds. The emergency department had already shed its usual shape by the time Riley arrived. Extra gurneys lined the halls. Yellow and red triage tags lay ready in neat stacks. The automatic doors hissed open and shut on a constant cycle, letting in slices of siren noise and cold night air. Dr. Leland Gwynn, the ER attending on duty, stood at the center station with a portable radio pinned to her shoulder and a clipboard in her hand. Her dark hair was tied back tight, her eyes sharp. Crane went over on a remodel downtown, she said, as Mercer and the surgical team reached her. Multiple trapped. Fire is still extricating. We have reports of at least 6 incoming 3 coded critical at the scene. She pointed as she talked. Price, you and Maya take trauma 1, blunt chest and abdominal trauma. Chen, you have trauma 2, head injury unresponsive. Hart, you are in trauma 4, currently tagged yellow, but that can change. She looked Riley in the eye. You good? She asked. Yes, Riley said. The first ambulance burst through the doors a minute later. A woman in her 30s, face gray and oxygen mask, fogging with each breath chest wrapped in improvised bandages. Paramedics called out vitals as they ran the gurney toward Trauma 1. The second patient came in almost on top of her. Young man, blood soaking his pant leg splint on his thigh, pressure held by a medic's hand. Compound femur fracture, heavy bleeding at the scene, tourniquet applied 15 minutes ago, the medic said. Riley waited at the doorway of Trauma 4, gloves on gown, tight as the third wave arrived. 2 paramedics wheeled in a man in his early 20s, Hispanic short buzz cut, training t-shirt cut open to expose his chest. His right leg was wrapped and splinted from knee to ankle. Dirt and concrete dust clung to his skin. Male 23, one of the paramedics said. Name is Diego Alvarez, Army out of JBLM, training accident crush injury from debris closed tib-fib fracture. Vital stable pain meds on board. Why is he here and not at base? Riley asked. Sight was closer to us than to them, the paramedic said. They diverted. They rolled Alvarez into Trauma 4. Riley stepped up to the gurney. Diego, she said, I am Dr. Hart. I am going to take a look at your leg. His eyes were wide but focused, fear contained by training. Yes, ma'am, he said. She cut away the rest of the torn pant leg and peeled back the temporary dressing. The skin around the fracture was swollen, mottled with bruising. His lower leg was deformed, angles wrong where bone should have been straight. Tiny black flecks dotted the skin around the break, embedded like seeds. Can you wiggle your toes for me? She asked. He did. Good capillary refill, warm skin, strong pulse in the foot. The fracture was ugly, but the blood flow held for now. How did this happen exactly? She asked, fingers palpating gently above and below the fracture, noting his flinch. Training Simsug, he said. We were running explosion drills. There was supposed to be a controlled blast. Something went wrong. The platform gave way. Debris came down. She looked closer at the tiny flecks in his skin. They were not just dirt. The pattern was too fine, too consistent. She smelled the faint, sharp tang of explosives still clinging to the bandage, a smell that did not show up in training videos. This was not a simulation charge, she said. Diego swallowed, eyes flicking to hers. Ma'am, he began. The fracture is from force, she said, keeping her voice even clinical. But these particles look like fragmentation. That is real blast residue, not squibs. He stared at her, the fear shifting shape. How do you know what an IED looks like in bone? He asked quietly. Her hands did not pause. She cleaned, irrigated, plucked out small foreign bodies with tweezers, her movements automatic and precise. I know fractures, she said. You know more than that, he answered. He watched the way she held the instruments, the efficiency of her motions. That grip, the way you check the pulse before you move anything, the way you talk. Try to keep your leg relaxed, she said. I need to set this. He did not let it go. We had a medic in Kandahar, he said. Special operations attachment. We called her Wraith. Saved half a squad with a broken leg and a half-empty kit. People said she disappeared when she came home, ghosted everyone. Riley's fingers tightened for one fraction of a second around the bone ends as she prepared to reduce the fracture. It was a tiny hitch invisible to anyone not watching for it. Diego was watching. It is a common nickname, she said. No, it is not, he said, not with that hair, that limp, those hands. She sighed through her nose. This is going to hurt, she said. Do it, ma'am, he said. She pulled a line and pushed, setting the bones in one smooth, controlled motion. His body arched on the gurney, teeth clenched against a shout. The monitors jumped, then settled. He panted, sweat standing out on his forehead. Breath through it, she said, almost done. She splinted the leg, checked perfusion again, then wrapped the entire structure in a clean dressing. You will need surgery to pin this in the OR, she said, but you will walk again. Yes, ma'am, he said. He watched her hand as she wrote quick notes on the chart. Wraith. She froze for a heartbeat, then set the pen down. You need to rest, she said. Orthopedics will be down to see you soon. He caught her wrist with his fingers grip weak but intent. I will not tell anyone, Capaz, he said quietly. I know what it is like to want to leave a place behind. She looked at his hand on her skin, then at his face. There is nothing to tell, she said. His eyes said he did not believe her. Thank you, ma'am, he said, for the leg. She eased her wrist free. You are welcome, she said. Riley stepped out of Trauma 4 into the corridor. The noise of the ED washed over her in waves, voices calling monitors, chiming wheels squeaking. Her cane found the floor, tapped once, steadying her. Behind her in the room she had just left, Diego Alvarez lay back against the pillow and reached for his phone with hands that trembled from pain and adrenaline. His thumb hovered over a contact for a moment, then tapped. A quiet voice on the other end answered after the second ring. Rainer. Commander, Diego said. It is Alvarez. You are not going to believe this. He glanced toward the half-open door, then lowered his voice anyway. I think I just met Wraith. She is at Rainier Memorial. Outside in the corridor, a trauma cart rattled by. Riley shifted her grip on her cane and moved toward the next task that needed hands. By the time the last ambulance pulled away from the bay, it was past midnight. The emergency department had settled from a roar to a rough murmur, the kind of tired quiet that only came after too many near misses and one or two losses. Riley sat on a stool outside an empty exam room, back against the wall, legs stretched out in front of her. Her scrub top clung to her spine. Dried sweat, stale coffee, and antiseptic layered in the air. The cane lay across her lap. Her hand still hummed with the ghost of the fracture reduction she had done on Diego Alvarez an hour earlier. Maya slid down the wall beside her, dropping to the floor with a soft grunt. Teenager in trauma 2 did not make it, Maya said. Her voice was flat. Head bleed was too big. CT looked like a storm cloud. Riley nodded once. She had heard the code call over the intercom, the flurry of footsteps, the quiet afterward. The chest crush, Riley asked. Price took her to the OR, Maya said. Last I heard they were still trying to get control. They sat in silence. Across the hall, someone laughed at something that was not really funny, the brittle sound of people trying to shake off adrenaline. You okay? Maya asked after a moment. Riley looked down at her leg. The ache had gone past sharp into a dull, throbbing burn. Her kneecap felt full, the tissue around it tight. Fine, she said. That is not what fine looks like, Maya answered. Riley tilted her head back against the wall and closed her eyes for 3 seconds. I have had worse, she said. I will be able to walk it off. Liar, Maya said without heat. A nurse stuck her head around the corner. Dr. Hart, she said, your soldier is asking for you, the one in Trauma 4. Alvarez, Riley asked. Geschaut? The nurse nodded. He wants to say something before they transfer him upstairs. Riley pushed herself upright, cane finding the floor automatically. Her leg objected, but it always did. I am coming, she said. Alvarez lay where she had left him, leg splinted and wrapped IV running clear fluid. He looked younger with the lines of pain smoothed out, a little hair damp with sweat. Ma'am, he said when she stepped in. We are past the battlefield, Alvarez, she said. You can call me Dr. Hart. Yes, ma'am, he said as if the words were wired into him. I just wanted to say I am sorry. For what? She asked. For calling you what I did, what he said. In front of people, I should have kept it to myself. The word hung unspoken between them. Wraith. The door was half open, he said. I think someone heard. It is fine, she said, though her shoulders tightened. It is not, he said. You are hiding for a reason. I get that. He hesitated, eyes dropping to his hands. I already texted someone, he said quietly. Before I realized you did not want to be found, my CO, Commander Rainer. Riley's chest tightened colder than the air in the room. What did you say? She asked. Just that I thought I had met you, he said. That you were here at Rainier. I did not give details, but he will know. She exhaled through her nose long and slow as if she could breathe that fact into something smaller. What is done, she said. He looked miserable. If you want, I can text him again, Alvarez offered. Tell him I was wrong, that I got the wrong person. No, Riley said. Her voice came out sharper than she meant. It softened a little on the next word. No, do not lie for me. He nodded. Whatever you are running from, he said. I hope you get where you are going. She did not answer that. She checked his vitals instead, listened to his lungs. Clear on the left, slightly diminished on the right, but nothing that worried her yet. You will be going upstairs soon, she said. They will schedule you for OR. You will be okay. Thank you, ma'am, he said again. Riley left the room, the weight of the name Rainer pressing at the back of her mind. She did not sleep much. 2 hours maybe in a call room that smelled like old pillows and dry erase markers, her body jolting awake at every distant alarm. When her pager buzzed at 5:30 with a generic day shift reminder, she was already staring at the ceiling. By 6:45, she stood outside Mercer's office with her cane and a paper cup of coffee that tasted like it had been burned twice. He had left a message before she crashed a few hours earlier. Office 7 in the morning. We need to talk. His door was closed, blinds tilted. She knocked. Come in, his voice saiu. She opened the door and stepped inside. The office did not have much clutter. Degrees on the wall, a framed photograph of a hiking trail with snow-capped mountains, a shelf of well-worn textbooks. Two monitors glowed on his desk, surgical schedules and lab lists open in tight windows. "Sit," he said not unkindly. She lowered herself into the chair opposite, leaning the cane within reach. He studied her for a second. "You look like you have been here all night," he said. "I have," she said. Before he could say more, his pager went off. The phone on his desk rang in the same breath. He picked it up. "Mercer," he said. As he listened, his face tightened. "How many vehicles?" he asked. "Any pediatric?" He stood up, phone wedged between shoulder and ear, grabbing his white coat from the back of his chair. "We will be right down," he said, and hung up. "Multi-car collision on Sci-Fi Wife Days," he said to Riley. 6 vehicles, several critical, 2 children. The word children hit something hard and deep inside her chest. For a moment, the office walls did not feel like they were in Seattle. The air tasted like dust and burning. "Come," Mercer said, "you are on trauma." The emergency department at 7 in the morning felt like a completely different hospital than it had at midnight. The light was harsher now, daylight pushing in through the high windows, mixing with the overhead fluorescence. The controlled chaos had returned. Dr. Lila Nguyen stood at the central desk, again radio at her shoulder. 6 vehicles, chain reaction, she said as a Mercer approached. 2 dead at the scene, 4 incoming, 2 adults, 2 pediatric. One of the kids coded on site and came back. She tapped the trauma bays on the whiteboard as she spoke. "Trauma 1 is the younger child," Nguyen said. "Trauma 2 the older, both with head trauma. Trauma 3 is an adult with abdominal injuries. Trauma 4, adult chest trauma, least critical on paper." Her eyes flicked to Riley. "You take trauma 4, Nguyen said. "You will have backup if you need it." "Yes," Riley said. Alarms began chiming as the ambulances hit the bay. The first gurney barreled in, paramedics shouting. 8-year-old male, one of them called. Ejected from booster seat, GCS 6 unequal pupils, intubated in the field. They rushed him into trauma 1, Mercer and Maya followed. The second was a teenager, maybe 16. Blood matted her hair, her face was ashen. She went into trauma 2 with Dr. Chen. The third, an older man with a distended abdomen and terrible bruising along his side, was wheeled into trauma 3. "Possible liver lac hypotensive," the medic said. Riley waited at the doorway of trauma 4 as the last gurney came off the elevator. 2 paramedics pushed it fast but steady. "Male 38, one of them said. "Name is Cole Rayner, active duty Navy, blunt chest trauma from steering wheel, shortness of breath en route, diminished breath sounds on the left. BP 90 over 60 and dropping, heart rate 130. O2 sat in the 80s despite non-rebreather." The name hit her like an impact. Cole Rayner. For a moment, the room narrowed to his face. There were new lines around his mouth, a few more gray strands in his short hair, but the jaw was the same. So was the small scar at the corner of his left eyebrow where shrapnel had nicked him once in a courtyard full of dust and smoke. His chest rose unevenly under the straps. His lips had a faint blue tinge. "Move him to the bed," Riley heard herself say, as if from a distance. The nurses transferred him, unstrapping, sliding, attaching monitors. "Dr. Hart," a nurse said. "Vitals." "O2 sat 83, another called. Pressure 85 over 50 and falling." Riley stepped to the side of the bed. Her hand closed over the cold metal of the rail to steady herself. Her leg felt suddenly far away. Up close, she could see the scar at his neck, too thin and white, where a field tracheotomy had once saved his airway. She had done that. Her own hands, different sands. "Doctor," the nurse prompted. Riley's throat closed. Her vision tunneled. For one terrifying second, she was back in a destroyed building, heat on her face, children crying behind a wall she could not reach. Rayner's weight slung over her shoulders, his blood soaking into her uniform. "I cannot," she heard herself say. The words slipped out barely, louder than a whisper. "What?" The nurse's eyes widened. "I cannot," Riley repeated. Her fingers dug into the rail. She forced her gaze away from the scar and met the monitor screen instead. Numbers flashed red. Mercer's voice cut through the noise from the next bay. "Dr. Hart." She turned. He stood in the doorway, gloves on gown, already splattered from the pediatric case. "That man is decompensating," Mercer said. "Either treat him or step aside." Riley looked down at Rayner again. His chest rose in shallow, uneven breaths. The left side barely moved. The right side lifted higher, pulling his trachea slightly off-center. The sound of his breathing rattled through the mask. The world swayed for a heartbeat, then snapped into a clarity that felt almost like pain. The ED noise dropped away. It was just the sound of his air moving wrong, the pattern of his ribs, the tremor in the nurse's hand as she held the oxygen mask. Everyone not essential step back, Riley said. Her voice had changed. It came out low and carrying with a command in it that did not belong to an intern. The nurses moved, the paramedics moved, even Mercer stilled. Maya, Riley called. I need a 14-gauge needle and a chest tube tray, now. Maya was at the door in seconds, having handed off tasks in Trauma 1. She pulled open a cabinet, tossed a kit onto the bed, placed a needle into Riley's outstretched hand. Riley peeled off Rayner's gown to expose his chest fully. Bruising spread across his sternum and ribs, darker on the left. She placed her fingers along his clavicle, counting down, finding the second intercostal space mid-clavicular. Air sounded louder on the right, almost absent on the left. Tension pneumothorax left side, she said. No time for imaging. Mercer watched from the doorway, his eyes intent. Are you certain? He asked. Completely, she said. She swabbed his skin with antiseptic. Her hand did not shake. The needle felt familiar in her grip. She inserted it at the chosen point, angling just above the rib to avoid the neurovascular bundle pushing through skin, subcutaneous tissue, intercostal muscle. There was a moment of resistance, then a soft give. A hiss of air burst from the catheter, loud in the small room. Rayner's chest moved differently almost immediately, the left side beginning to lift. O2 sat increasing, a nurse called. 85, 88, 90. Riley exhaled once. Prep for chest tube, she said. He's going to need a longer-term solution than a needle. She marked the fifth intercostal space at the anterior axillary line, injected local anesthetic, even though he was already slipping under because habit demanded it. She made a small incision, spread the tissue with a clamp, then guided the tube in with practiced motions, feeling the pop as it entered the pleural space. More air escaped, followed by a small amount of blood. Connect to suction, she said. The nurse did. The water in the drainage chamber bubbled. The lung inflated more fully with each breath. The alarms on the monitor eased from frantic to urgent. Pressure 95 over 60 and rising, someone said. O2 sat 94. Riley taped the tube in place, covered the site with the dressing checked breath sounds again. Clearer now on the left, equal with the right. Good, she said. Her own heartbeat finally eased a fraction. She felt Mercer step up beside her. That was textbook, he said quietly. She did not look at him. Her eyes stayed on Rayner. Get thoracic surgery on board, Riley said. He will need evaluation for rib fractures and any underlying lung contusions. Rayner's eyelids fluttered. For a moment his gaze focused. His pupils tracked moved, found her face. Wraith, he rasped through the mask. The words scraped out of him, torn but sure. The room went still. Every nurse, every medic, Maya, even the intern in the corner, pretending to be invisible, looked at Riley. She leaned in closer so he could hear her over the hum of the suction. Stay still, she said. Breathe. You are okay for now. I knew Alvarez was not crazy, Rayner whispered. His mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. You really are here. His eyes slipped closed again as the sedative took hold. Get him to CT then to the OR, Riley said. The team moved. Gurney rails up, portable monitor attached. Chest tube secured. They rolled him out of Trauma 4 down the corridor toward imaging. Riley stepped back. Her hand found the edge of the counter behind her. The strength went out of her legs in a sudden rush. For a moment she thought they might buckle. The cane kept her upright. Maya watched her. They called you Wraith, Maya said. She was not smiling. Her eyes were very serious. What is that? Riley swallowed. Old nickname, she said. From where? Maya asked. Before Riley had to answer, Mercer's hand closed lightly around her elbow. My office, he said. Now! He did not wait for a reply, just turned and walked. Riley followed Kane, tapping across the tile. In his office, the light from outside had shifted. The sun sat higher, throwing stripes across the floor through the blinds. Mercer closed the door behind them and turned to face her. Sit, he said. She sat. He remained standing for a moment, one hand on the back of his chair, thinking. Then he moved around the desk and pulled open a drawer. He took out a thin folder and laid it down in front of her. After the splenic case yesterday, he said, I made a call to a colleague at Walter Reed. Her fingers hovered over the folder but did not touch it yet. Your suturing technique, your triage decisions, the way you moved today, Mercer said. They did not match your paperwork, so I asked about certain patterns, combat medicine patterns. He tapped the front of the folder. This is what he sent me, Mercer said. Public record now that parts of it are declassified. Riley opened the folder. On the first page was a printed email. Beneath it, a clipped report with several sections blacked out. At the top, in clean block letters, it read, United States Navy after action report. Operation Iron Harbor, Helmand Province. Her eyes moved over the lines. Special operations team ambushed in urban zone. Multiple casualties, building collapse, secondary explosion, one medical officer on site, Lieutenant Commander Riley A. Hart. She skimmed down the words, blurring, then sharpening. Medical officer sustained significant lower extremity injury during extraction of wounded personnel. Despite personal injury, officer continued providing advanced trauma care for 11 hours under fire, resulting in the survival of 8 SEAL operators and 3 local Allied civilians. Further down a section she had never seen. Subsequent intelligence review indicates that the building housing 3 civilian miners was rigged with secondary explosive devices timed to target rescue personnel. Collapse occurred as a direct result of enemy action. Given the structural compromise and timing of the secondary blast extraction of the miners was determined to be tactically impossible. Recommended commendation, Navy Cross. Riley's throat went dry. Her left hand curled into a fist on her thigh. They knew, she said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. They knew the building was rigged. Yes, Mercer said. Intelligence knew. The investigation concluded months after you were medically retired. They said it was unstable, she said. Her eyes stayed fixed on the paragraph. They said to stay back, that more of us would die if we went in. I thought they were just afraid. They were afraid, Mercer said, and they were also right? Her vision blurred. She blinked hard and the words swam back into focus. 3 children died in that building, she said. And 11 people did not, Mercer answered. His voice stayed calm. Because you refused to stop. She shook her head once, a small, violent motion. I could hear them, she said, calling out. I could not get to them. My leg would not move fast enough. She pressed her fingertips into her eyes for a moment as if she could erase the images there. I left them, she said. You were forced out by a second explosion, Mercer said. You were blown into a wall. Your leg was shattered. 2 more detonations followed. That is in the report as well. He waited until she lowered her hands and looked at him. You have been carrying all of that as your personal failure, he said. When in reality it was a combination of enemy tactics and command decisions, neither of which were yours. It does not change that they are dead, she said. No, he said, it does not. Silence settled between them for a long moment. Outside, a helicopter passed low, the faint thrum of rotors barely audible. Why did you hide this? Mercer asked quietly. Why start over here as if you had never held a scalpel before? Riley looked down at her leg, at the faint outline of the brace she wore under her scrubs. Because when I came home, she said slowly, every time someone heard the word Helmand, they looked at me like I was a ghost story. They did not see a surgeon. They saw something that made them uncomfortable. Her mouth twisted. And because when I closed my eyes, all I saw were the kids I did not get to, she said, not the ones I saved. I did not want that version of me near a civilian OR. So you buried her, Mercer said. I thought if I stripped my history down to the degrees, views, and the license, she said, maybe I could just be another intern who got yelled at for being slow. I wanted to learn the things I did not know without everyone expecting miracles every time I walked into a room. You did not want your war to walk into the hospital with you, he said. She nodded. It followed anyway, she said. He leaned back in his chair. Lieutenant Commander Hart, he said. She flinched at the title. You are not an intern pretending to be more than you are, Mercer said. You are a surgeon pretending to be much less. Which one bothers you more? She asked. The pretending, he said. Her mouth almost quirked. Almost. My patients do not care what I used to be, she said. They care if I can keep their insides inside. Today you did that, Mercer said, with a man whose life you had already saved once. She went still. I found that part too, he said. He reached into the folder and pulled another sheet. Commander Cole Rayner, critically wounded during the same operation, carried out of the hot zone by his medical officer despite said officer's own injuries. Airway established on site with improvised equipment. Her eyes closed briefly. She could feel the weight of him across her shoulders, the heat of the sand. The pop in her leg when the second blast went off. He called you Wraith in front of my staff, Mercer said. That name means something. It is what they called me, she said quietly. Over there. Why, he asked. I moved quietly, she said. I got in and out of places I probably should not have. I stayed when I should have pulled back. Fitting, he said, for someone who has been haunting her own life. She almost laughed, a small broken sound. So what now? She asked. Do you call the board? Tell them their intern lied on her application. You did not lie. In that you omitted. There is a difference. That sounds like a very lawyer sentence, she said. It is a pragmatic one, he said. You disclosed your education. You did not falsify training. There was no slot for combat surgery on the form. He folded his hands on the desk. However, he went on, this cannot stay a rumor buzzing in hallways and trauma bays, not with the Navy involved. A knock sounded on the office door, quick and firm. Mercer frowned. Yes, he called. The door cracked open. His secretary leaned in, eyes a little wider than usual. Dr. Mercer, she said. Security just called from the main lobby. His brows rose. They said there are several Navy personnel in dress uniforms downstairs, she said. They are asking for a Lieutenant Commander Riley Hart. Security was not sure how to handle it. Riley closed her eyes for one brief second. How many? Mercer asked. 8, the secretary said. One of them is in a wheelchair. Mercer looked at Riley. It seems, he said, that part of the past is already here. Mercer held her gaze for a moment after the secretary left. You do not have to go down there, he said. Security can tell them you are unavailable. Riley looked at the folder still open on his desk, at her own name printed above paragraphs she had never read until now. Lieutenant Commander, Navy Cross recommended. You think that will make them leave? She asked. His mouth curved in something that was not quite a smile. No, he said. I think it will irritate them. She blew out a breath. If I ignore this, she said, they will just find another way to drag it into the building. Probably, Mercer agreed. Better to walk into the lobby on your own feet. She picked up her cane and stood. Her leg felt stiff, the familiar protest from too many hours on it. She shifted her weight until the ache settled into the background hum she knew how to work with. Come with me, she said. I was planning on it, Mercer replied. They took the elevator down in silence. The doors opened onto the main lobby, and for a moment Riley thought that everything looked ordinary. Visitors at the information desk. A woman with a stroller waiting near the windows. A volunteer in a blue vest pushing a cart of magazines. Then she saw them. 8 men in Navy dress uniforms stood in the center of the lobby, positioned in a loose line that snapped into formation as she stepped out of the elevator. The polished floor reflected their shoes. Their ribbons and medals caught the overhead light. Reiner sat in a wheelchair at the end of the line, chest bandaged under the hospital gown blanket thrown over his lower half. An IV stand stood beside him, pump quietly clicking. Beside him, Diego Alvarez leaned on Crutch's leg and a fresh cast hospital bracelet still on his wrist. He straightened when he saw her. The elevator door closed behind her with a soft sound. One of the men at the front, tall with sandy hair and a sharp jaw, raised his voice. Attention, he called. The word cracked through the lobby like a snapped branch. All 8 men came to attention in perfect unison, heels together, hands at their sides. Even Reiner straightened in his chair as much as his chest allowed. Every other sound in the lobby fell away. The woman with the stroller stopped hand-frozen on the handle. The volunteer set the magazine she had been arranging down without looking at it. The tall officer stepped forward 2 paces. Lieutenant Commander Riley A. Hart, he said, United States Navy, medical officer attached to Naval Special Warfare Command. Riley's fingers tightened on the cane. Her heart beat fast enough that she felt it in her throat. For a second, she was not sure her legs would carry her. She shifted the cane a little forward and walked. Each step across the tile sounded loud in her own ears, the rubber tip of the cane marking time. Her left leg pulled the ache sharp in the first few steps, then settling. The officer stopped when she was a few feet away. Ma'am, he said, I am Lieutenant Grant Walker. This is Chief Petty Officer Luis Herrera. Petty Officer First Class Sam Kwan. Petty Officer Miller, Petty Officer Briggs, Petty Officer Ortiz, and Senior Chief Davis. He gestured down the line. Each man's face held some version of the same look. Gratitude. Relief. Something heavier that she did not want to name. We served with you in Hellman, Walker said. We heard you were here. How? Riley asked. Her voice sounded hoarse. Walker glanced toward Alvarez. Word gets around, he said. Diego lifted his shoulders in a small, unapologetic shrug. You disappeared after Iron Harbor, Walker said. We kept the rumor mill busy for a while trying to figure out where you went. Nobody knew until yesterday. Herrera stepped forward holding something flat and square wrapped in brown paper. He peeled the paper back with careful fingers. Underneath was a dark wooden frame. Inside, mounted on navy blue velvet, was a bronze cross on a blue and white ribbon. A small plaque sat beneath it. After the investigation finished, Walker said, "Command approved this. They mailed it to your last known address. It came back." Herrera lifted the frame with both hands and offered it to her. "We have been carrying it for 4 years," he said. His voice was rough. "Waiting." Riley stared at the navy cross. The metal sat still glass catching the light. The plaque read, "For extraordinary heroism in action against an armed enemy." Her chest felt tight. Air came in, but it did not feel like enough. "I cannot take that," she said. Herrera's jaw worked. "You earned it," he said. "You do not have to want it." Reiner cleared his throat. "Doc," he said. His voice was not much more than a rasp, but it carried. "Let us thank you properly." She looked at him. His face was pale under the fluorescent lights, but his eyes were clear. "We are alive because of you," he said. 8 of us. That is not a thing you just leave in a file." Applause had not started yet. The lobby was too stunned for that. It sat in a suspended quiet. Riley reached out. Her right hand closed around the frame. It was heavier than it looked. Her left hand came up to support the bottom edge. Her fingers brushed the glass. The men in front of her moved as one. Their right hands rose to their brows. 8 salutes crisp held. There was nowhere to hide from that. The pressure behind her eyes sharpened. She swallowed against it. The cane stood alone now, balanced against her leg. She straightened her back and lifted her right hand, bringing it up to her temple. Her salute was slower, but it did not shake. For a long moment, the lobby held its breath. Then somewhere off to the side, a nurse began to clap. It was one pair of hands at first awkward and unsure. Another joined, then another. The sound spread growing, filling the space between the high ceilings and the polished floor. Visitors stood up from chairs. Staff poked their heads out of doorways. Someone held up a phone. Riley lowered her hand and looked at the metal again. The applause flowed around her loud and strange. Her leg protested the extra weight on it, but she stayed where she was. Mercer stood at the edge of the crowd, arms folded, face unreadable. Only his eyes betrayed anything, a small light there that had not been present when he first walked into the observation deck days ago. "Ma'am," Walker said when the clapping began to fade, "we booked the small conference room on the 2nd floor. If you have time, we would like to talk without an audience." She nodded. "I can give you a few minutes," she said. They moved as a group to the elevator. The doors closed on the lingering whispers of the lobby. The conference room was too clean for the history it was about to hold. Whiteboard on the wall, long table stack of untouched notepads in the center. The metal sat in front of Riley, the polished wood warm under her fingertips. The men took chairs around her. Alvarez sat at the far end leg, up on a stool, looking slightly dazed. "We have been looking for you since the day you signed out of the rehab facility," Herrera said. "One day you were there, the next day you were gone." "I left," she said. "We noticed," Walker said. Reiner rolled his chair closer to the table. "They did not tell you about the full report, did they?" he asked. "No," she said. "We got parts of it," he said. "Herrera knew more because he cannot keep out of classified files." Herrera lifted his hands. "Old habits," he said. "You have spent 4 years thinking you failed those kids," Reiner said, while command sat on language that said exactly the opposite. Riley glanced down at the metal, then back at him. "Why did you come?" she asked. "Really?" "Because we are still breathing," Herrera said. "I have a wife, 2 boys. They only exist because you refused to drop me when my femur snapped. I would like the person who made that possible to know that." Walker touched 2 fingers to the ribbon on his own chest. "I got this because I was standing next to you when things blew up," he said. "You got yours because you walked back into it." Riley let the words sit. They did not go down easily. "You could have sent an email," she said. Reiner almost smiled. "That is not really our style," he said. A knock sounded at the door. Maya's head appeared around it, eyes flicking from the uniforms to the metal. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "Dr. Hart, ICU called. Commander Rainer's post-chest tube CT is back. They want a thoracic surgeon to evaluate. Mercer's taking him, but he told me to tell you, and I quote, 'She is scrubbing with me.'" Reiner looked from Maya to Riley. "Doc," he said, "if he gives you a scalpel, take it." She stood cane-scraping lightly on the floor. "I thought you did not want me near an OR," she said to Maya. "That was before you turned an exploding lung into a balloon again," Maya said. "Things change." Riley looked at the metal one more time. Her fingers brushed the edge of the frame. "Hold on to that," she said to Herrera. "I have something else I need to hold on to right now." The scrub room outside OR2 smelled like chlorhexidine and steam. Riley stood at the sink, hands moving through the steps automatically, Fingers, palms, wrists, forearms. She scrubbed until her skin felt almost raw. Mercer stood at the next sink. "You did not have to ask me," she said, "to scrub in." "I did not ask," he replied. "I told you." He shut off the water, backed into a sterile towel. She did the same, the fabric rough against her skin. "You have seen me operate," she began. "I have seen you improvise in crisis," he said. "I have not seen you in a controlled theater. I am curious." They gowned and gloved. The OR doors opened with their usual sigh. Inside, Rayner lay prepped in draped monitors, humming ventilator, sighing in rhythm with his breath. The chest tube still in place, connected to suction at the foot of the bed. The thoracic team stood ready. A scrub nurse checked the instruments again, eyes scanning the trays. "Dr. Hart will be taking lead," Mercer said. There was a small ripple at that. Thoracic attending Dr. Patel raised an eyebrow but did not argue. She had been in Trauma 4 that morning. She had seen the needle and the tube. Riley stepped to the table. Her leg twinged, but the cane awaited at the edge of the room. Here her weight was not on her feet, so much as on the small square of world directly in front of her. She placed her gloved hands on either side of the draped field for a second, grounding herself. 3 fractures on the left, Dr. Patel said, pointing to the CT images on the monitor. Ribs 3 through 5, possible laceration to the upper lobe of the lung. Hemothorax minimal, but we should explore. Understood, Riley said. Whenever you are ready, Mercer told her. She held out a hand. Scalpel, she said. The words settled around her as if the room had been waiting for it. The first cut went cleanly through skin along the left lateral chest wall, following the curve of the ribs. She dissected down through soft tissue, careful, efficient. Blood oozed as expected but did not surprise her. She paused to cauterize where needed, then continued. Once the ribs were exposed, the fractured segments were visible, edges jagged but not wildly displaced. She guided a retractor into place, the metal arms opening with a quiet ratchet, giving her space to see the injured lung. There was a laceration along the superior aspect of the upper lobe, small but leaking. Blood shimmered where it had seeped. Here, she said. Upper lobe tear. She cleaned the area, suction drawing away the fluid. The tissue looked viable, not shredded. 2 layers of interrupted sutures, Dr. Patel said. You have a preference on material. 3O Vicryl, Riley said. The scrub nurse placed the needle into her hand without looking down. Riley's fingers closed around it in a grip that had once felt as familiar as holding a pen. She placed the sutures with an economy that drew the eye. Needle in arc through tissue out. Tie, cut, repeat. The rhythm soothed something that had been rattled all day. Each knot sat exactly where she wanted it. Around her, the team adjusted into her pace. Dr. Patel watched closely, expression intent. Mercer stood slightly back, eyes on her hands more than on the field. How many of these have you done? Dr. Patel asked, not quite casually. A lot, Riley. So. Her voice stayed calm, but numbers flickered through her mind like a ledger. Field thoracotomies, chest tubes, emergency repairs done with headlamps and gloves that did not quite fit. Your technique is faster than the way we teach it, Patel said. Different context, Riley answered. Different trade-offs. She finished the last suture on the lung laceration and checked for leaks. None. The tissue held. Rib stabilization, she said. We will plate ribs 3 to 5. It will make breathing less painful and lower his risk of complications. Plates and screws were passed. She worked methodically, aligning bone ends, fixing them into position with hardware that gleamed under the lights. Rayner's vitals stayed steady, pressure good, oxygenation strong. Finally satisfied, she irrigated the chest cavity, checked one last time for bleeding, then guided the existing chest tube to a slightly adjusted position. Looks clean, she said. She closed in layers, each stitch pulling the edges together, turning the open wound into a thin red line. By the time she placed the final stitch in the skin, her shoulders ached and her legs sent up a fresh protest. She did not feel any of that until she stepped away from the table. Good work, Dr. Patel said. There was no surprise in her voice, just acknowledgement. Textbook, Mercer murmured. Riley looked down at Rayner's bandaged chest, rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm. He will hate the hospital food, she said. That is how we know he is recovering, Patel said. In the scrub room afterward, Riley sat on a bench for a moment with her head in her hands. Water ran in the sinks as nurses cleaned up. Her shoulders sagged now that the focused tension had leaked out. Mercer sat down at the other end of the bench, leaving a gap between them. You can operate, he said simply. I hope so, she answered. You are not just competent, he said. You are extremely good. She stared at the floor. It is the only part that ever made perfect sense, she said, on deployment. He nodded. You know, he said, some people spend their entire career trying to reach the level you are at and never get there. I do not know what to do with that, she said. Start by not hiding from it, he replied. Later that afternoon in the ICU, the lights were dimmed and the machine sounded quieter. Rayner lay with his head elevated, nasal cannula under his nose lines running into both arms. His eyes were open. Seeing? Riley stepped into the room. Her cane touched the floor softly. You look terrible, he said. You look worse, she replied. He smiled with only half his face. Fair, he said. She checked his vitals more for something to do with her hands than because she doubted the numbers on the screen. Your lung laceration is repaired, she said. Ribs plated. You will feel like you have been run over for a while. It was only a car, he said. He watched her for a moment. I did not expect to see you here, he said. He said. I did not expect to see you on a gurney in my trauma bay, she answered. He shifted slightly and winced. I owe you twice now, he said. This is getting ridiculous. You do not owe me, she said. That is not how I see it, he replied. He grew serious. Diego told me you looked like you wanted to be anywhere but in that room when he recognized you, he said. Why are you hiding under a different life? She looked at him, then away. Because the last one nearly killed me, she said. In more ways than one. He nodded slowly. You know we tried to find you, he said. After you left the rehab ward, we showed up to bring you the medal and you were gone. Transfer paperwork vanished. No forwarding address. I want it out, she said. Of all of it. Does it feel like you are out? He asked. She did not answer that. You should rest, she said instead. He watched her move toward the door. Doc, he said. She stopped. What happened in that building was not on you, he said. We got the same report Mercer showed you. We know now. You did everything humanly possible with one leg and half a body of supplies. Her fingers tightened on the cane. I know what the paper says, she said. Then start believing it, he said. She walked out without answering. She had just reached the nurse's station when her pager vibrated. A numeric code she did not recognize flashed across the screen. A moment later, her phone buzzed as well. It had been turned back on since the lobby silent until now. A message from Mercer. Board meeting. Conference room 4B, question of your status. Come now. She swallowed once and turned toward the elevators. The conference room on the 4th floor was already full when she arrived. The hospital's chief medical officer, Dr. Evelyn Cho, sat at the head of the table. 2 other board members flanked her. A lawyer from the hospital's legal department occupied a seat near the end papers neatly stacked. Mercer sat along one side. Maya stood against the wall. Logan Price occupied a chair opposite the board, posture straight. Riley stepped in, every head turned. Dr. Hart, Dr. Cho said, please take a seat. Riley crossed the room, cane tapping softly, and sat in the empty chair that faced the board. This is a formal review, Dr. Cho said. Dr. Price has brought forth a concern about your application to this program. We are here to discuss it. Price cleared his throat. My concern, he began, is that Dr. Hart has misrepresented her level of prior training. That misrepresentation may have affected her placement in this residency. Dr. Cho glanced at him. Be specific, she said. Her file lists no prior surgical residency, Price said. No fellowships, no attending posts. Yet in the last 48 hours, she has demonstrated skills on par with a seasoned trauma surgeon. I believe she has significant experience that she concealed, thereby taking a spot meant for someone who actually needed basic training. Dr. Hart, Dr. Cho said, do you have a response? Riley looked at Price, then at the board. My application listed my medical school, my internship, my licenses, she said. I did not list any civilian surgical residency because I did not have one. That part is accurate. You left out the part where you were a combat surgeon, Price said. The application did not have a field for combat surgery, Riley said. That is a technicality, he shot back. That is a truth, Mercer said. Dr. Cho raised a hand. One at a time, she said. She focused on Riley. Did you serve in the military as a surgeon? Dr. Cho asked. Yes, Riley said. There was no point in sliding around it now. I was a Navy medical officer. Did you perform operative procedures during that time, Dr. Cho asked. Yes, Riley said. Did you omit that from your application with the intent to gain an unfair advantage? Cho asked. No, Riley answered. I did not think of it as an advantage. What did you think of it as? Cho asked. Riley looked down at her hands, then back up. As something that would make it harder to be treated like everyone else, she said. I wanted to start fresh in a civilian setting. I wanted to learn what I did not know without my past being the loudest thing in the room. Yet it is very relevant to your current work, Price said. It affects expectations, supervision, liability. It also affects survival rates, Mercer said. Dr. Cho looked at him. You have data, she asked. Not compiled in a spreadsheet, Gia? He said, but I have cases. Mr. Nolan would be dead without her call on his spleen. Commander Rayner would be dead without her needle in his chest. She recognized an IED injury in Alvarez that most of us would have written off as a simple crush. She has raised the game in my department in less than 2 weeks. That is not the issue, Price said. The issue is trust. Trust runs both ways, Maya said from the wall. Dr. Cho glanced at her. You are Dr. Ortiz, she said. Yes, Maya said. Second year. I have worked side by side with Dr. Hart since she arrived. She has never made me feel small. She has never flaunted what she can do. If anything, she holds back. Maybe she should not. Walker appeared in the doorway. Excuse me, he said. This is a closed meeting, the lawyer said. Ma'am, Walker said, addressing Dr. Cho. With respect, I believe this concerns us as well. Identify yourself, Dr. Cho said. Lieutenant Grant Walker, United States Navy, he replied. Ma'am, we would like to speak on Dr. Hart's character. Cho studied him for a moment, then nodded once. You have 2 minutes, she said. Be concise. Walker stepped into the room. Herrera and Alvarez stood behind him just inside the threshold. Dr. Hart was our surgeon in Helmand Province, Walker said. We went into a bad situation and it went worse. She stayed when she could have left. She carried people out on a leg that was already broken. 11 of us are alive because she refused to stop. He glanced at Riley, then back at the board. She did not tell us about the Navy Cross they recommended for her, he said. We found out through channels. She never went to pick it up. That is not the action of someone trying to leverage her past. That is someone trying to disappear from it. Herrera stepped forward. I have 2 sons, he said. They have a father because she did her job better than anyone had a right to expect. If she wants to be just another resident now, I understand, but do not punish her for being the person who got us home. Alvarez shifted on his crutch. I saw her look at my leg and know it was not just a broken bone, he said. She saw details nobody else would have. She treated me like a patient, not a story. Dr. Cho listened, fingers steepled. Thank you, she said. You may wait outside. They stepped back. The door closed. Dr. Cho turned to Riley. Dr. Hart, she said. If you had it to do over, would you fill out your application differently? Yes, Riley said after a moment. I would still not put combat surgeon on the first line, but I would find a way to say more so nobody felt blindsided. Dr. Cho nodded slowly. The board has discussed this briefly already, she said. We will discuss it further now. Please step outside. We will call you back in when we have reached a decision. Riley stood the chair creaking behind her. She walked out into the hall, Kane moving with her. The door closed quietly. Walker, Herrera, Alvarez, Maya, Mercer. Even Price now that he had exited all occupied pieces of the hallway. The group looked like a strange gathering of 2 different worlds. Maya moved to her side. If they do something stupid, Maya said, I am quitting. You like the coffee here too much? Riley said. It is terrible, Maya replied. Exactly, Riley said. Nobody else would put up with that. Maya's mouth twitched. You okay? She asked. No, Riley said, but I am upright. They did not have to wait long. The door opened 10 minutes later. Dr. Hart, Dr. Cho said, come in. Riley went back to her chair. The room smelled faintly of old carpet and copier toner. The board has reviewed your case, Dr. Cho said. We do not find grounds for dismissal. Some of the tension in Riley's shoulders eased, but only slightly. However, Dr. Cho continued, we do believe your prior experience needs to be acknowledged and integrated appropriately into your current role. She glanced at the paper in front of her. Effective immediately, your title will change from first-year surgical intern to senior surgical resident with trauma focus, she said. You will have teaching responsibilities under Dr. Mercer's supervision. Riley blinked. Excuse me, she said. We also want to develop a structured pathway for military medical personnel transitioning into civilian practice, Dr. Cho said. Dr. Mercer has proposed that you help design and lead that program. Riley looked at Mercer. He did not look surprised. This hospital treats a large number of veterans, Dr. Cho said. It is in our interest to understand how to use their skills well. It is also, I suspect, in yours. Riley let out a slow breath. What if I say no? She asked. Then we revisit your fit here, Dr. Cho said, because pretending you are something you are not serves no one. Riley thought of the Navy Cross sitting in the conference room downstairs, of Rayner in the ICU, of Alvarez on his crutches, of Maya in the hall threatening to quit, of the interns who had watched her place a chest tube and seen a version of a doctor they had not expected. She looked back at Dr. Cho. I will need help, Riley said. I do not know how to build a program. You will have it, Mercer said. I do not want to be a poster, Riley added. You will be a clinician who teaches, Züchter, Cho said. Nothing more, nothing less. Riley nodded slowly. All right, she said, then I accept. Dr. Cho's shoulders dropped a fraction. Good, she said. We will formalize the details. For now, get some rest. You look like you have been in this building for days. I have, Riley said. Then start by leaving it for a few hours, Dr. Cho replied. Riley stood and walked out. The hallway felt strangely wide. Maya fell into step beside her. Senior resident, Maya said. Look at you. It is just a different label, Riley said. It is a label that comes with me being allowed to say go do that more often, Maya replied. I'm not mad about it. Walker and Herrera approached. How did it go? Walker asked. I still have a job, Riley said. They tried to promote me. Tried, Herrera repeated. I said yes, she said. That is more like it, he said. They stood there for a moment, a cluster of uniforms and scrubs, and a cane in a fluorescent-lit hallway that had no idea what to do with all those histories at once. 6 months later, the teaching amphitheater at Rainier hummed with a different kind of tension. Not panic, not crisis, but the restless energy of people about to be asked questions in front of their peers. Riley stood at the front, her black cane leaned against the lectern within easy reach. The Navy Cross hung framed on the wall behind her next to a photograph of a dusty courtyard and 11 figures in desert uniforms. Someone had printed a small card with her name and pinned it discreetly under the metal. She tried not to look at it while she talked. Rows of residents and a handful of fellows filled the seats, some in neatly pressed scrubs, some in jackets, a few in civilian clothes that still could not hide a military bearing. A coffee cup rattled softly somewhere near the back as someone tried to set it down without drawing attention. Damage control surgery, Riley said. Who can give me the basic idea? A hand in the second row went up. Dr. Sarah Kim, second-year hair pulled into a tight ponytail, highlighter sticking out of her pocket. You fix what will kill the patient in the next hour, Sarah said. Not everything. Good, Riley said. You stabilize physiology. You do not do a 6-hour masterpiece while their liver empties onto the table. A ripple of quiet amusement moved through the room. She walked slowly away from the lectern hip, brushing the edge of the front row. Her leg complained, but the ache was just another familiar chorus, under the murmur of the air conditioning and the soft scribble of notes. In an ideal trauma, she said, you have imaging, labs, consultants. In reality, you often have a hole in someone in a clock. She picked up a marker and uncapped it, the smell of ink sharp in the cool air. On the whiteboard, she wrote 3 letters. A BC. Airway breathing circulation, she said. In that order. If you cannot remember anything else, remember this. I do not care how beautifully you repair a tendon if they cannot breathe. She tossed the marker back into the tray. A hand went up near the aisle. A man in his late 30s, broad shoulders, short hair, sat with his back straight. His ID read David Park, MD. A small army patch pin sat above his name. Captain Park, she said. Go ahead. Ma'am, he said, then caught himself. Dr. Hart, I have a question about pacing. In the field, we made decisions fast. We had to. Here, attendings want 3 consults and 2 committees before we place a central line. A few people snorted quietly. I'm struggling with figuring out when to push and when to wait, Park said. When to be the person who acts and when to stay in my lane. Riley nodded. This is the tension every veteran in this room is carrying, she said. Out there, you were often the only line between alive and dead. Here you are, part of a bigger apparatus. Both realities are true. She rested a hand lightly on the lectern for a second. You only push past the system when you are sure someone will die if you do not, she said. Not might, will. Park watched her carefully. How do you know the difference? He asked. You practice in lower stakes moments, she said. You learn your attendings. You learn which ones will back you if you act in a pinch. You learn where the bottlenecks are. Then, when a real wall comes up, you already know how hard to lean on it. She saw a few people nodding, not just the veterans. For now, she said, you document like you never documented in your life. You make your reasoning visible. If you call an audible in trauma, you show why it made sense. She scanned the room. All right, she said. Case discussion. Someone present the highway rollover from last Tuesday. Walk me through your thought process, not just what you did. Hands went up. Voices traded details. The hour passed in beads of questions and answers, small nods and quiet corrections. The room started formal and ended with a feel closer to a unit talking through an op. When it was over, the residents filtered out in small groups, conversations trailing into the hall. A few stayed to ask quick clarifying questions. Sarah hovered at the front, waiting for her turn. Park approached the lectern as the room emptied. Dr. Hart, he said. He said, do you have a minute? 1, she said. I have clinic at 3. He gave a quick, humorless smile. I have been thinking about quitting, he said. She set the marker down. It rolled an inch and stopped. Because, she asked. Because I spend half my time pretending I do not know how to do things I have done in worse conditions, he said. Because when I mentioned that I placed 50 central lines under fire, someone tells me that was cute, but I should follow the algorithm. His jaw tightened. I'm tired of feeling like who I was before makes people nervous, he said. She leaned against the front row desk, taking weight off her leg. When I first came here, she said, I tried to pretend the other life did not exist. It worked for about 6 weeks. He glanced at the cane, then at the metal on the wall behind her. From what I hear, it worked even less than that, he said. If you walk away now, she said, what does that feel like in your body? He thought about it. His hands opened and closed once at his sides. Feels like leaving something half done, he admitted. That is because it is, she said. You already did the job in one of the worst places imaginable. You can do it here, but you have to decide you want to stay, not just endure. He looked around the room. His gaze slid over the rows of chairs that bore the photos. I do not know how to be less than I am, so other people feel comfortable, he said. Good, she said. He blinked. Good, she repeated. Your job is not to shrink. Your job is to learn the parts you do not know and help people survive with the parts you do. He blew out a slow breath. That is a tall order, he said. Medicine is a tall order, she said. You already signed on for that. He considered her, then nodded. I will stay, he said, for now. Come talk to me in a month, she said. If you still want out, I will help you figure out how to leave in one piece. He almost smiled. Deal, he said. He left the room with a slightly looser posture. Sarah drifted closer as the door clicked shut behind him. Dr. Hart, she said. Quick question about your suturing pattern on the lung cases. Walk with me, Riley said, picking up her cane. I have about 3 minutes between here and my office. They talked technique down the hall, the smell of cafeteria food drifting faintly from a distant corner. Riley answered, gesturing with her free hand. Sarah listened at expression intent. At the door of Riley's office, Sarah peeled off with a grateful nod. Thank you, she said. Bring me your case logs next week, Riley said. We will go over them. Her office was small. 1 desk, 1 chair, a second chair that had been dragged in from the hall. A bookshelf held a mix of trauma manuals, worn paperbacks, and a few binders labeled with neat block letters. On the wall across from the metal hung a corkboard. Photos were pinned there. Rayner in a hospital gown giving the camera a thumbs up. Alvarez on crutches outside the hospital, grinning under a baseball cap. A group shot of Park and 3 other vets from the program, all in scrubs, all pretending they were not looking at the lens. Riley sat propped her leg on a rolling stool and opened her laptop. A blank document glowed on the screen, the cursor winking at the top. At the top of the page, she typed, Letter of recommendation. Emily Herrera. Someone knocked lightly on the open door. Come in, she said. A young woman stepped in. Blonde hair pulled back into a loose braid backpack over one shoulder. She wore jeans and a t-shirt with the logo of a community college. Dr. Hart, she said. I'm sorry, the receptionist said I could find you here. You did, Riley said. You are Emily. Yes, the woman said. Emily Herrera. She glanced at the Navy Cross, then back at Riley. My dad is Luis, she said. Herrera. Riley smiled, small but genuine. I see the resemblance, she said. Emily shifted her weight fingers, tightening briefly around the strap of her bag. I wanted to say thank you, she said. I know you hear that a lot, but I needed to say it myself. You do not owe me that, Riley said. My dad does, Emily replied. And I do too. He would not be here if you had walked away. She took a breath. I am applying to medical school, she said. I want to be a trauma surgeon. Riley leaned back in her chair. That is a hard choice, she said. I know, Emily said. I grew up with nightmares in the next room. I know he still wakes up some nights thinking he is somewhere else, but he's here. He walked me down the aisle last year. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. These are my transcripts, she said, and my personal statement. I was hoping you might consider writing a recommendation. Riley took the envelope. The paper felt heavier than it should. Why trauma? Riley asked. You could pick dermatology, sleep, regular meals. Emily laughed once. Because I know what it feels like to have someone disappear into an OR and come back alive, she said. I watched my mom's face when they told her he made it. I want to be that person for someone else. Her eyes were bright steady. That sounds naive when I say it out loud, she added. It sounds clear, Riley said. She looked down at the envelope again, then back up. I will read this, she will say. Yes, she said, and I will write you a letter if I can do it honestly. Emily nodded. That is all I'm asking, she said. She hesitated at the door. My dad told me about the building, she said softly. About the kids. I know you probably do not want to hear it from me, but he never thought that was your fault. Riley's hand tightened on the arm of her chair. Tell him, she said, that I'm working on believing him. Emily's expression softened. I will, she said. She left. The hallway swallowed her footsteps. Riley sat for a moment listening to the low hum of the building. She opened the envelope, skimmed Emily's statement. Certain phrases caught her eye, words like fear and gratitude and second chances. She set the papers aside. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Reiner Alvarez set a date, June. Wedding will be here in town. He says if you do not come, he will find a way to schedule a non-urgent trauma consult just to drag you in. Riley huffed a small laugh. She typed back. Back. Depends on my call schedule. The reply came almost at once. That is not a no. Proud of you, Wraith. She let the phone rest in her hand for a moment, then set it down. Her pager went off a second later, vibrating sharp against her hip. Level 1 trauma. ED. Now. She closed the laptop without saving and stood. The cane was already in her hand by the time she reached the doorway. The hallway outside her office smelled faintly of bleach and coffee. A nurse hurried past with a stack of charts. Somewhere above, a helicopter's rotors beat the air, the sound muffled through layers of concrete. By the time she reached the elevator, 2 other residents had fallen in beside her, panting slightly. The doors opened. They stepped in. You taking the lead, one of them asked. If they let me, she said. The elevator chimed for the ground floor. The door slid open onto a corridor that led straight to the emergency department. The noise grew with each step. Voices calling vitals wheels, rattling the sharp electronic keening of a monitor pushed just past its limits. The automatic doors to the ED stood open. Through them, she could see 3 gurneys being wheeled in almost at once. Color tags swung from wrists and ankles. One patient cried out high and raw. Another lay too still. Dr. Nguyen stood at the center again, eyes taking everything in. Heart, she called as soon as she saw her. You have the middle one, blunt abdominal trauma, possible pelvic fracture. They are circling. Move. Got it, Riley said. She stepped forward, cane, finding the rhythm of the floor. The medic at the head of the middle gurney started rattling off numbers before she even reached for the rail. Male late 20s, he said. Unrestrained driver rollover, hypotensive in the field, 2 liters in, pressure still soft. Riley's hand landed on the gurney. She matched its speed, walking beside it as they rolled into the trauma bay. On 3, she said. 1, 2, 3. They transferred the patient to the bed in a smooth lift. Her cane bumped the side rail and then stopped propped where she needed it. Airway is clear, she said. Breathing shallow. Get me a chest film, pelvis film, 2 large bore IVs, type and cross. Hands moved. People responded. The room settled into that familiar pattern where everyone knew their role and her voice tied it all together. Her pulse jumped. Her leg ached. Her mind felt clear. She pressed her palm lightly against the patient's abdomen. Guarded rigid. Blood pressure sagging on the monitor. Probable intra-abdominal bleed, she said. Warm him. Call the OR. Tell them we are coming. She glanced around the room. Park was inserting a line. Sarah was pressing gauze to a scalp wound. A new intern watched her hands and copied her movements on a second patient down the hall. Riley Hart straightened the weight of the cane under one hand, a stethoscope hanging around her neck, a navy cross on a wall a few stories up. The ED noise swelled around her. All right, she said to the team. Let us work. The words settled over the room like a starting gun. The monitors beeped. The suction hissed. The overhead lights burned hot and white. The building stood full of people who had no idea whose history was stitched into its halls. The gurneys kept coming. Her hands stayed steady. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.